I never imagined I'd be typing this out on Reddit, but here I am, staring at my screen in the middle of the night, heart pounding like it did that evening 6 months ago. My fiancée, let's call her Emily, and I were at her parents' house for what was supposed to be a casual dinner to discuss wedding details. We've been engaged for 3 months, rings picked out, venue booked in our quiet suburban town. But as I helped clear the table, her dad, Robert, pulled me into his study. He shut the door, poured himself a scotch, and fixed me with that steely gaze he'd honed from years in corporate sales. "Listen, son," he said, not a hint of warmth in his voice. "If you want to marry Emily, you're signing over your business to her. Full control, in her name only. No negotiations. Otherwise, there won't be a wedding." I froze, the plate in my hand nearly slipping. Was this some twisted test, a joke? But his expression told me it was dead serious. In that moment, everything I'd built, our future, my hard-earned company, felt like it was crumbling. How do you respond when the father of the woman you love turns your dream into a hostage situation? The air in the study felt thick, smelling of old books and cigar smoke, and I could hear the faint clink of dishes from the kitchen where Emily and her mom were chatting obliviously. My mind raced back to all the little warnings I'd ignored, and I wondered if this was the end before we'd even begun. To really grasp how deep this cut, I have to take you back further than just our meeting. My own family history played a big role in why Robert's demand hit so hard. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood on the outskirts of a Midwestern city, I watched my parents scrape by after my dad lost his factory job in the recession. Money was always tight, arguments frequent, and I vowed early on to build something stable for myself. Flashback to my teenage years. I was 16, tinkering with computers in our garage, fixing neighbors' PCs for pocket money. My mom encouraged it, saying, "This could be your ticket out, kid." Dad was skeptical, calling it fancy hobbies. But I persisted, taking online courses after school. By college, I'd started freelancing, and that's where the seeds of my business were planted. But relationships, they were casualties of my drive. A couple of girlfriends left because I was too focused on work, leaving me wary of mixing love and ambition. Then Emily entered the picture, seeming like the perfect balance.
Emily and I met 4 years ago at a local coffee shop in our mid-sized city during one of those networking mixers for entrepreneurs. I was 32, grinding away as a solo IT consultant, fixing networks for small businesses while dreaming of scaling up. The place was buzzing with ambitious types, the aroma of fresh brews mixing with the hum of conversations. She was 29, a graphic designer freelancing after burning out at a big agency, standing by the counter with a sketch pad under her arm. We bonded over bad lattes and shared frustrations about work-life balance, how the hustle culture glorified exhaustion. She laughed at my terrible jokes about buggy software, and I admired her creativity, the way she could turn abstract ideas into visuals that popped. Within months, we were inseparable, spending weekends exploring hiking trails or hole-in-the-wall diners. I remember our first real date vividly, a picnic in the park where she sketched ideas for my business logo on a napkin, her hair catching the sunlight as she concentrated. "You need branding if you're going to grow this," she said, her eyes sparkling with genuine excitement. I took her advice to heart, and slowly, my one-man operation turned into a team of 5, specializing in cybersecurity for local firms. Emily became my biggest cheerleader, helping with marketing on weekends, designing flyers and websites that brought in new clients. It felt like we were building something together, a partnership that extended beyond romance. But her family was always lurking in the background, a subtle undercurrent I didn't fully appreciate at first. Robert, a self-made man who'd retired early after flipping properties during the real estate boom, saw potential in me, but always with a caveat, like I was a project he could mold or perhaps exploit. He was the type of guy who dominated every room, with stories of deals closed and fortunes made, his voice booming over family gatherings. Emily's mom, Susan, was the counterbalance, quiet, nurturing, always in the kitchen whipping up comfort food like her famous lasagna. But she deferred to Robert on everything, from vacation plans to financial decisions, which I later realized stemmed from years of his controlling nature. Flashback to our first family dinner, about 6 months into dating. We pulled up to their spacious colonial-style home in the suburbs, the kind with manicured lawns and a 3-car garage. Robert greeted me with a firm handshake, eyeing my casual button-down like it was a job interview. Over roast chicken, he grilled me about my business, revenue streams, client lists, growth projections. "Impressive start, but you need connections to scale," he said, pouring wine. I nodded politely, but inside I felt scrutinized. Emily squeezed my hand under the table, whispering later, "He's just protective. He likes you." Susan smiled warmly, asking about my family, but Robert steered back to business talk. That night set the tone. I was welcome, but on his terms.
Another flashback from early in our relationship highlights how Robert's influence crept in subtly. About a year in, Emily and I took a road trip to the mountains for a weekend getaway, our first real escape from city life. We hiked trails lined with evergreens, the crisp air filling our lungs as we talked about dreams. Her wanting to start a family someday, me envisioning my company going national. On the drive back, she casually mentioned that Robert had offered to invest in my business. "He thinks you're onto something big," she said, staring out the window at passing farmland. I declined, explaining I wanted to bootstrap it, prove I could succeed without handouts. She understood, but later confessed Robert had been disappointed, muttering about missed opportunities. That refusal, I now see, was the first crack in his facade of support. He started dropping hints during holidays, like at Thanksgiving when he gifted Emily a fancy watch, but gave me a book on family wealth management. It felt pointed, a reminder that I was an outsider in his world of inherited security. As things got more serious, the dynamic shifted. 2 years into dating, we'd moved in together into a modest apartment downtown, with exposed brick walls and a view of the bustling street below. It was cozy, filled with Emily's art prints and my tech gadgets. I proposed during a weekend hike. Nothing fancy, just us at the summit with the ring I'd saved for over months of overtime. She said yes immediately, tears streaming down her cheeks as the wind whipped around us. "This is everything," she whispered, hugging me tight. But introducing the engagement to her family was a red flag I chose to ignore at the time. At dinner that night, Robert clapped me on the back, toasting with champagne, but later, alone in the garage while pretending to admire his classic car collection, a shiny red Mustang and a vintage Ford, he cornered me. The space smelled of oil and polish, tools neatly hung on the walls. "You're ambitious, kid, but ambition without security is foolish. Ever think about merging your little outfit with something bigger? I know people who could take it to the next level." I politely declined again, explaining I wanted to build it my way, brick by brick. He nodded slowly, but his smile didn't reach his eyes, those piercing blue ones that seemed to calculate everything. Emily's mom, Susan, was thrilled, gushing over wedding ideas and offering to help with planning. But I sensed the undercurrent. Robert's approval was conditional. Flashback number 3 takes us to last year, when my business really started to take off, adding layers to the tension. I'd landed a major contract with a regional bank, doubling our revenue overnight and allowing me to hire more staff. The office buzzed with energy, my team celebrating with pizza parties after long days. Emily and I marked the milestone with a trip to the coast, staying in a quaint beach house where waves crashed outside our window. We walked hand in hand on the sand, toes sinking into the cool grains, talking about buying a home, starting a family. "I'm so proud of you," she said, her voice soft against the ocean roar. But back home, Robert invited us over for what he called a family strategy session. That's how he phrased it, like we were board members. Over steak and red wine in their dining room, adorned with crystal chandeliers, he laid out his vision. "Emily should be more involved in your company. Put her on the board. Give her equity. It's smart for taxes, and it keeps things in the family bloodline." Emily shifted uncomfortably in her chair, picking at her food, while Susan nodded along silently. I held firm. My fork paused midair. "Appreciate the advice, Robert, but it's my baby. I've poured everything into it. Sleepless nights, failed pitches." He chuckled, but there was a sharp edge to it, like I'd challenged his authority. Later that night, as Emily and I drove home under streetlights, she confessed he'd been pressuring her behind the scenes for weeks. He says things like, "A real man provides security for his wife, not just promises. It's his way of showing he cares." I brushed it off as overprotectiveness, but it planted seeds of doubt in my mind. Why couldn't he just be happy for us? Was it greed? Or something deeper, like fear of losing control over his only daughter after a tough divorce from his first wife decades ago? Wedding planning kicked into high gear about 8 months before the ultimatum, turning what should have been joyful into a minefield. We set a date for spring, inviting about 100 guests, mostly friends from work, my extended family from back home, and Emily's smaller circle. The venue was a beautiful garden spot outside town, with blooming flowers and string lights we imagined twinkling at dusk. I was swamped at work, interviewing candidates for new positions, my days filled with meetings and code reviews, while Emily quit her freelancing gigs to focus on us full-time. She threw herself into details, dress fittings, floral arrangements, even custom invitations she designed herself. Robert offered to foot the bill for the venue, which seemed generous at first, but the strings attached became glaringly obvious. He'd call me weekly, ostensibly to check in on progress, but always circling back to business metrics. "How's that bank contract holding up? Any expansions planned?" he'd ask, his voice crackling over the phone. I'd give vague answers, but he'd push. "You know, protecting Emily's future means thinking long-term. Assets in her name. It's just smart for taxes, and it keeps things in the family bloodline." I confided in my best friend, Mike, over beers at our local pub one night. The place was dimly lit, pool tables clacking in the background.
Mike, a mechanic with a no-nonsense attitude, listened as I vented. "The guy's intense, but he's family soon," he said, clinking his glass against mine. "Ride it out, man. Emily's worth it." She was, but the arguments between us started small. Her defending Robert's generosity, me snapping about his interference. One evening after a tense cake tasting where flavors blurred into frustration, she admitted over leftover samples, "Dad's worried you'll leave me high and dry if things go south. He's seen it happen to friends in his circle." I reassured her, pulling her close on the couch. But inside, resentment brewed like a storm. How dare he question my commitment? My business wasn't just money. It was my identity, forged from years of hustle, from those garage days to now. The months leading up to the dinner ultimatum were peppered with subtle escalations that I can see clearly now in hindsight. Emily's younger cousin, let's call her Tara, got married that winter, and we attended the wedding as a dry run for hours. The event was lavish, held in a grand hall with chandeliers and live music, Robert footing much of the bill as the family patriarch. During the reception, as couples swayed on the dance floor, he pulled me aside again, this time with a glass of whiskey in hand. "See this? Family supporting family," he said, gesturing to the room. "Tara's husband signed a prenup that protects everyone. You should consider something similar, but better." I nodded vaguely, changing the subject, but it lingered. Emily noticed my mood later as we drove home through snowy streets. "What's eating you?" she asked, her hand on my knee. I told her, and we talked till dawn, her defending him as old school and me feeling like an acquisition rather than a son-in-law. Around this time, my own family got involved more. My mom visited from out of town, staying in our spare room, and she picked up on the tension. Over coffee one morning, steam rising from mugs, she said, "That Robert sounds like he's trying to buy his way in. Don't let him steamroll you, honey." It was validating, but added pressure. I didn't want family rifts before the wedding. Then came the ultimatum that fateful evening in the study, shattering the fragile peace. After Robert's demand, I stumbled back to the dining room, my face drained of color, the smell of dessert still hanging in the air. Emily noticed immediately, her brow furrowing. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." She touched my arm gently. I couldn't find the words right then, just muttered that we had to go, my voice tight. In the car, as street lights flickered by, I spilled everything. The exact words, the cold delivery. She was silent at first, gripping the steering wheel, then burst into tears at a red light. "He can't mean that. It's ridiculous. I'll talk to him tomorrow." But deep down, I knew he did. His tone left no room for interpretation.
The next day, she confronted him over lunch at a quiet cafe downtown, the kind with checkered tablecloths and soft jazz playing. Robert doubled down, claiming it was all for her protection in case of divorce, citing grim statistics he'd read in some financial magazine. "Marriages fail, Emily. I'm looking out for you," he said, according to her recount later. She stormed out, slamming her napkin down, but when she got home, she told me he was unyielding. "He says it's non-negotiable. If you really love me, you'll do it to prove it." That line hit like a gut punch, echoing in my head as I paced our living room. Was she siding with him? Doubts crept in. Was our relationship strong enough, or had Robert's influence poisoned it? We spent the following days in a tense limbo, the wedding invites half sent, vendors calling for confirmations and deposits. Our apartment felt smaller, conversations clipped. I consulted a lawyer friend, Dave, over coffee at his office, surrounded by stacks of files. He warned that signing over full ownership could leave me vulnerable. Prenups were one thing, but a complete transfer? "It's insane, man. It sounds like extortion," he said, shaking his head. I nodded, but the fear of losing Emily gnawed at me. Meanwhile, Robert involved Susan more actively. She started calling Emily daily, her voice soft and pleading on speakerphone. "Your father just wants what's best. Think about the family unity," she'd say, guilting Emily with memories of childhood vacations funded by Robert's success. Emily wavered, torn between us, and our arguments escalated. One night, over takeout Chinese that went cold on the table, she snapped, "Maybe he's right. Security matters." I fired back. "This isn't security, it's control. If you can't see that, maybe we're not ready." She slept in the guest room that night, and I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment. To clear our heads, we drove to a remote cabin in the woods a weekend later, a place we'd rented before for anniversaries. The drive was silent at first, winding roads flanked by dense forests, but as we unpacked by the fireplace, cracks in the armor showed. Amid the scent of pine and crackling logs, we talked for hours, raw, unfiltered. "I built this business from nothing," I said, voice cracking as I stared into the flames. "After my parents' divorce, watching them fight for scraps, I swore I'd never depend on anyone or let anyone take what's mine." Emily nodded, tears welling, sharing her own burdens. "Growing up with Dad's iron fist, I always felt like I owed him everything. College tuition, my first car. He's controlling because he loves me in his twisted way, but this, it's crossing the line." We cried, held each other, and agreed to stand united against him. But Robert upped the ante upon our return, threatening to cut her off financially, her inheritance trust fund, the down payment he'd promised for our house. "If you choose him over family, you're on your own," he texted her, which she showed me in disbelief.
Friends and family noticed the strain, rippling out. At a bridal shower, organized by Emily's aunts, held in a sunny community center with balloons and finger sandwiches, she faked smiles while opening gifts, but her eyes were puffy from crying. My side, like Mike and my sister Lisa, rallied around me. Lisa, who runs a small bakery back home, called daily. "This is nuts. You deserve better," she'd say, her voice firm over the phone. The postponement rumors spread, and we fielded awkward questions from guests. Work suffered too. My focus slipped, leading to a minor client issue that took days to fix. Emily started job hunting again, feeling useless, which added to her stress. About a month after the ultimatum, a major twist emerged from an unexpected source, deepening the drama. My sister Lisa, ever the investigator, overheard gossip at a community event in her town. Turns out some mutual acquaintances knew Robert from business circles. Curious, she dug a bit. She's nosy like that, always has been since we were kids snooping on neighbors, and found public records online showing liens on his properties and pending lawsuits from bad investments during the pandemic. "He's in deep debt, bro. she told me over a video call, her kitchen cluttered with flour bags in the background. That ultimatum, it's not about protection. He's using you to bail himself out. Shocked, I shared the info with Emily that evening as we sat on our balcony, city lights twinkling below. She didn't believe it at first, scrolling through the documents on my laptop with wide eyes. "This can't be Dad," she murmured. But the evidence was irrefutable. Court filings, bankruptcy whispers. Armed with this, we confronted Robert together at his office downtown, a sleek space with glass walls and modern art. The receptionist buzzed us in, and he looked surprised, then defensive, as we laid out the printouts on his desk. "What's this nonsense?" he blustered, face reddening like a tomato. We pressed. The plan was for Emily to manage my business post-transfer, funneling profits to cover his losses through backdoor deals. He denied it at first, slamming his fist. "This is about legacy, not my money." But as Emily pushed, tears in her eyes, cracks appeared. "Fine, the market tanked me. I was desperate," he admitted, slumping in his chair. The betrayal stung deeper than before. He'd manipulated his own daughter for personal gain, using our love as leverage. Emily was devastated, storming out in silence.
That revelation cracked everything wide open, sending us into a spiral of reevaluation. Emily cut contact with him for weeks, blocking his number, while Susan tried mediating with tearful voicemails. "He's sorry, honey. Give him a chance." We postponed the wedding indefinitely, needing space to breathe. I threw myself into work, expanding to new clients in neighboring states, my team stepping up amid the chaos. But nights were lonely, filled with what-ifs and insomnia, the bed feeling empty even with Emily there. She spiraled too, questioning her upbringing, and we attended couples therapy twice a week. The therapist's office was neutral, with soft lighting and tissues on the table. "I never realized how much Dad's shadow loomed over me," Emily admitted in one session, her hands twisting a Kleenex. "It made me doubt us." We unpacked layers, my trust issues from childhood poverty, her people-pleasing from Robert's dominance. Sessions were raw, sometimes ending in arguments, but progress came slowly, like peeling an onion. Meanwhile, subplots unfolded with our support networks. Mike organized a guy's night to distract me, bowling and burgers at a local alley where laughter echoed off the lanes. "You're dodging a bullet with that old man," he joked, but seriously advised, "protect your assets, but don't lose her." On Emily's side, her best friend Cara, a teacher, hosted wine nights where they vented. Cara shared her own story of in-law drama, helping Emily see she wasn't alone. My mom flew in for a week, cooking comfort meals and offering wisdom. "Family isn't blood if it's toxic," she said over pot roast. Robert, facing his financial mess head-on, started selling assets and even sought credit counseling, but his apologies came haltingly via Susan. As spring turned to summer, we rebuilt brick by brick. We drafted a fair prenup with Dave's help, one that protected both our assets without ultimatums or transfers. Equal shares in future joint ventures, but my business remained mine. Emily launched her own design firm, independent of everyone, securing her first clients through old connections. "This is for me," she said proudly, showing me her logo over breakfast. Trust mended through small acts. Date nights, honest talks, even a spontaneous road trip, echoing our early days. Eventually, Robert reached out directly, months later, inviting us to dinner. We went cautiously to a neutral restaurant with white tablecloths and ambient lighting. He looked older, lines etched deeper. "I was scared of losing everything, my empire, my daughter. I went about it wrong," he confessed over appetizers, voice trembling. It wasn't a full redemption, but a start. We forgave tentatively, setting boundaries, no more financial meddling. He wasn't invited to the rescheduled wedding, but attended a small family brunch after. If you're reading this and have gone through something similar, maybe a controlling in-law, a family money drama that tore at your relationship, or even discovering hidden motives in those you trust, hit that like button or drop a comment. It really helps knowing I'm not alone. And maybe subscribe for more stories like this that remind us we're all in this together, navigating the messy ties of love and legacy. In the end, we married on a crisp fall day, vows exchanged under a canopy of golden leaves in that same garden venue, scaled down to intimate friends and family. No grand orchestra, just a guitarist strumming softly. Emily walked down the aisle in a simple gown, her smile genuine, no shadows. "I choose you, flaws and all," she vowed, her hand steady in mine. It wasn't the fairy tale affair we'd once envisioned, but it felt real, earned through trials that tested our core. Post-honeymoon, a quiet beach escape, we settled into married life, buying a cozy house in the suburbs with our own savings. Emily's firm flourished, landing corporate gigs, while my business hit new milestones, including a partnership that expanded us regionally. Robert's relationship with us remains cautious. We visit sporadically, holidays mostly, with therapy helping him address his control issues. Susan bridges the gap, her warmth a constant. I've learned profound lessons. Love isn't about blind obedience or sacrifices that erode your soul. It's mutual respect, hard conversations, and sometimes drawing lines with family to protect your partnership. Regret lingers for the innocence lost, the months of pain and doubt, but there's redemption and resilience. We emerge stronger, more aware. We talk about kids now, building a life on our terms, free from ultimatums. Flash forward a bit more. A year into marriage, challenges persist but feel manageable. Emily's firm hit a rough patch with a difficult client, echoing my early struggles, and we navigated it together. Late-night brainstorming sessions over coffee, just like old times. Robert, humbled by his near collapse, started mentoring young entrepreneurs pro bono, a positive shift we acknowledged during rare dinners. My team grew to 15, and I even hired Emily for a rebranding project, blending our worlds healthily. Therapy continues sporadically, a tool in our kit for when old wounds itch. Friends like Mike and Kara became godparents to our future plans, their support unwavering.
Looking back, the ultimatum was a catalyst, forcing us to confront not just Robert's greed, but our own vulnerabilities. My stubborn independence, Emily's lingering daddy issues. It's a story of betrayal, yes, but also growth, where justice came not from revenge, but boundaries and truth. Heartbreak morphed into deeper connection. Resilience born from the ashes of doubt. If I could tell my pre-ultimatum self one thing, it'd be trust your gut, but don't let fear win. Fight for what's right, together. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life tales. And drop a comment below. Your experiences might just help someone else who's silently going through the same hell right now.